In his traditional Christmas message, Pope Francis has called for an end to what he described as the senseless war in Ukraine. The 86-year-old head of the Catholic Church addressed the faithful from the central balcony at St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican. He condemned the use of food as a weapon of war and called for solidarity to assist all those suffering.
Nostro sguardo si riempie dei volti dei fratelli.
Let our eyes be filled with the faces of our Ukrainian brothers and sisters who are living this Christmas in the dark and cold, far from their homes, due to the devastation, the destruction caused by 10 months of war. May the Lord inspire us to offer concrete gestures of solidarity to assist all those who are suffering. And may He enlighten the minds of those who have the power to silence the thunder of weapons and put an immediate end to this senseless war. Tragically, we prefer to heed other counsels dictated by worldly ways of thinking. Yet, who is listening to the voice of the child?
Our Europe regional editor, Paul Moss, was listening to the Pope's message.
Let us set this in context. The Pope this year has been criticised by some for not criticising Russia, denouncing Russia enough. Others say he's been too strident. At the end of last month, he talked about the cruelty of Russian troops. Not surprisingly, Moscow complained. Others say he needs to be more explicit. So what did we hear there? May the Lord enlighten the minds of those who have the power to silence the thunder of weapons. He doesn't name Russia there. And that's going to annoy some people, even if they feel that was implicitly Russia he was talking about. I mean, effectively, I suppose in non-religious terms, we would say it was just a sort of plea, please come to your senses. And again, he says, we know that every war causes hunger and exploits food as a weapon. Let us start with those who hold political responsibilities to make food an instrument of peace. Again, those who hold responsibility. He criticised Russia explicitly. Yeah. I think that is going to annoy some people. Now, we should remember, he doesn't ignore the suffering of the people of Ukraine. We heard him talking about it very explicitly there, those who are experiencing this Christmas and the dark and the cold. He seems to be trying to tread some kind of middle path where some would say no middle path is appropriate. Of course, we should also remember and ask the question, how much do the people of Russia and Ukraine care about the Pope? This is a conflict between two predominantly Orthodox countries. There are Catholics in Ukraine. I think it's about 10% of the population.
But he did talk about other conflicts, didn't he? He did mention them.
Very much. And I think the Pope was very keen that we shouldn't forget these other conflicts while all attention is, for understandable reasons, on Ukraine. He talked about Syria, which is still scarred by conflict. He talked about the Holy Land, Israel-Palestine, he means, where there's been an increase in violence in the last few months. He expressed his hopes for the Christian communities which still live in the Middle East. Said he hoped they will be able to sustain it, and talked about conflicts in Lebanon, the violence in the Sahel, Afghanistan, Myanmar, Yemen. He called for reconciliation in Iran. And he also said he hoped for the calming of tensions in the Americas. We should remember he's a Latin American Pope. He talked about Haiti, a situation many people probably not focusing on, but where there's no war, but government control has collapsed.
So covering a lot of ground there, Paul.
Indeed.
Yeah, and just time to ask about the Archbishop of Canterbury, the head of the Worldwide Anglican Communion, who has also been giving his Christmas address. What's he had to say?
Well, he, as expected, first of all paid tribute to the late Queen. He said she put her interests above others. He also waded into politically controversial territory. The Archbishop has been criticised this year for talking about the situation with asylum seekers. Britain has a plan to send asylum seekers to Rwanda, which he said does not stand the judgment of God. So all eyes on him again. Would he back off this subject? No, he didn't. Today he said Jesus has his heart reaches out to those on the small boats. That's a reference to people trying to cross the English Channel, but also those trying to cross the Mediterranean, refugees around the world.